People constantly talk about how modern games took various elements from Dark Souls, but so few people examine where Dark Souls got its inspiration. Artistically, it would be Berserk. Gameplay-wise, it would be Zelda and Castlevania. However, from a narrative and atmospheric point of view, many credit Dark Souls as the genesis of fragmented storytelling and despair-inducing isolation. When this couldn't be further from the truth, these techniques were pioneered by Metroid Prime 1. But since Dark Souls was the first to combine all these concepts and layer on its own unique aspects of crushing difficulty and the Souls upgrade system, it's been unfairly given recognition for concepts that Metroid Prime did well before its time. So let's give Metroid Prime the credit it's due for its enormous hand in creating the Souls-like genre. First and most obviously, there's the interconnected design of the maps and how both games ingeniously link the areas back together to create shortcuts. Now, this isn't anything special for Metroid Prime, it's building off its predecessor and Symphony of the Night. But Talon 4 more than lives up to the excellent design this franchise is known for. But Dark Souls is admittedly the first game that added the element that makes linking back to an old area such a spectacle to behold: the lack of a loading screen. There's a moment in Dark Souls when you have to cross a bridge that has a dragon breathing fire across it, and finding a ladder underneath that bridge was 10 times more mind-blowing than that dragon. Dark Souls also benefits from the lack of a map screen, so the player never has a general idea of where they are in relation to the rest of the world. So it's a genuine shock when you link back up to an old area, because you had no idea you were so close to it. The more detailed and sprawling design of a proper Metroidvania makes a map screen essential, but I don't think there's any reason they still need to telegraph the transitions between the areas with loading screens, and it would make the world feel more seamless and immersive. However, the main thing that builds immersion in a game is something that Metroid Prime absolutely nailed: atmosphere. Both of these games rely heavily on a sense of isolation and desolation. This world doesn't want you here, and its muted colours and fearsome enemies communicate that every inch of it is treacherous. However, whilst isolation and desolation are the most prevalent emotions in these games, each one focuses on a respective aspect. Metroid Prime is a game where you are alone, period. Nothing and no one will help you, not only on this planet, but for who knows how many millions of miles in outer space. Where 2 and 3 both give you brief moments with NPCs who guide you on your journey, Prime 1 just has Samus and an entire ecosystem of extraterrestrial fauna trying to kill her. The game so perfectly captures the sense that no one else has been here for millennia, and that's easily one of Metroid Prime's biggest strengths. Dark Souls, meanwhile, relies on desolation. The world is no means empty or devoid of life, but there's certainly no hope left anywhere, with the notable exception of Solea. There are certainly areas in Dark Souls that make you feel like it's just you and the brutal enemies, but the previously praised interconnected level design means that there's never a friendly NPC as far away as you think. Where Metroid Prime paints an ever-expanding but completely isolated world around you, Dark Souls 1 constantly throws paint in your eyes in the basement of a 7-Eleven. Both of them make you feel like you're alone because both make you feel helpless. But Metroid Prime makes you find the tools you need to escape, where many of Dark Souls' major upgrades and boons come from the people you talk to. Although said people are all off their rocker, so I guess there is a sense of isolation since you feel like the only sane person. Then again, you are willing to play a game that has the Capra Demon, so your sanity will be determined by your enjoyment. But while Metroid Prime and Dark Souls were both massive leaps forward in terms of interconnected level designs and games about isolation, there's only one arena that Metroid Prime straight up invented that Dark Souls is unfairly credited with: exclusively indirect storytelling through lore entries. The key word is exclusively. I'm well aware that Ultima, System Shock, and Fallout all used lore entries scattered around the world to tell stories. But these games still have a clearly communicated main narrative for the player to follow, and these logs are purely optional. But Metroid Prime is the first game that features almost no dialogue or text regarding its main plot, and without constant abuse of the scanning visor, players would be left baffled by the events and locations found within the game. Sound familiar? Now, this type of storytelling is, and I say this with confidence, objectively worse at storytelling than traditional narrative structures. Because everything has to be told and not shown. What's more, since within universe these texts are non-fiction, they can't have any flair or drama to them, as these are ostensibly historical texts. But this style of story, and I also say this with confidence, objectively must be celebrated, because this is an extremely rare example of a narrative that can only exist within video games. These stories are satisfying because you, the player, discovered these texts in the world, and you have to piece together the puzzle by searching for more entries. The exploration is a key part of why this style of storytelling is excellent, and an example of a type of story unique to interactive media. Games are unquestionably the most complex forms of art, and it should allow for a wide range of methods to communicate its themes. And while storytelling in games has never been more high quality, it's disappointing to see how similar it is to films. So while Dark Souls is credited with this revolutionary story structure, it's a Metroid queen who wears the crown of dusk. I'll be back in 2 days. In the meantime, here's a video ranking the Prime trilogy.